You are listening to The Hero's Journey. I'm Jeff Garvin. So canned, I don't know what that was about.
Yeah.
You're listening to The Hero's Journey. I'm Jeff Garvin.
And I'm Dan Zarzana.
Let the journey begin.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. You just railroad right over me.
It's not in the script. Welcome to the show.
So Dan, are you saying that to me or are you saying that to the audience? I'm very confused.
I'm welcoming the audience.
Oh, okay. Right.
I welcomed you when you entered the door.
Right. Sorry. Please continue.
Hey, Jeff, if you're enjoying this podcast, please share it. Tell your friends. Mention it on your own blog or podcast. You have another podcast? Wait a minute. I'm jealous.
No, what?
Share us on social media and leave us a review on iTunes.
This is episode 9, The Godfather.
Jeff, on a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are you about this one?
Like 7.5.
Really? Only 7.5?
7.5, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. We are going to talk about
like,
the whole story.
How nervous are you on a scale from 1 to 10?
I'm not going to answer you now. We're going to talk about the whole story from start to finish, so consider yourself warned.
The Godfather was released in March of 1972 by Paramount Pictures and starred Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Robert Duvall, Diane Keaton, and like a massive cast of the best Italian-American
Right.
character actors ever. The director, Francis Ford Coppola, also co-wrote the screenplay with Mario Puzo based on his 1969 novel of the same name. The Godfather won Oscars for Best Picture, Best Actor in a Leading Role for Marlon Brando, and Best Adapted Screenplay for Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola.
It was also nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for James Caan, Robert Duvall, and Al Pacino. All of them?
Yeah,
That's
all
amazing.
3.
Yeah, it's like they didn't leave room for anybody else to have a shot.
And I was surprised that Pacino got nominated for a supporting role.
Right. It was also nominated for Best Director, Best Costume Design, Sound, Editing, and Original Score.
Yeah, what a massive Oscar contender was The Godfather.
Yeah, it sure was. In Golden Globes land, it won for Best Drama, Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Score, and Best Actor for Brando.
So Pacino was just snubbed for this movie, apparently.
Well, he was unknown.
So I was reading the sort of the language of the nominations. The names of the awards were slightly different. And I think in the 70s, to win an Academy Award, you had to be established. I think it's different now than it used to be.
In that a lot of newcomers are being honored.
Yeah. So here's a tidbit. The Godfather is rated number 2 on IMDb, the top 250 movies of all time. Do you know what number 1 is?
Do you want me to guess?
Yeah, guess.
I'm going to say our episode number 1 subject, The Shawshank Redemption.
Ding, 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 ding,
Is
ding,
that
ding,
right?
ding, ding, ding. Absolutely right. You win at podcast. This has been a great
episode. It was either
episode.
that or Fast and Furious 5
Oh,
or something.
God. Get out of here.
We're doing one of those movies.
Is
one of these
5 the
days.
best one?
No.
As long as we don't do Pitch Black.
I don't know. They're fun.
Whatever.
The Godfather had a production budget of $6 million. Its original budget was $2.5 million.
Wow.
It went way over budget.
Wow.
And even in 1972, or 1971, I guess, when it was being filmed, a $6 million budget. That's like a tiny little indie film now.
Right.
That was probably Moonlight's budget.
Right.
It grossed over $134 million worldwide, which sounds like peanuts now.
Yeah, that's like less than the budget of the Terminator
That's
movies.
crazy.
Yeah.
But it was a huge success at the time.
I think the other thing is that this is before Cineplexes. This is before video rental. This is before DVD sales. And now all that's counted as part of the gross. The other thing is for movies that old, they only report the production budget. But for newer movies, if you go to Google, you can see the total budget, like with marketing and stuff like that. And some of these indie films, the marketing budget is 40% of the budget of the movie once it gets picked up by a distributor. So I wonder what The Godfather's marketing budget was.
Yeah, I don't know. Fun fact, The Godfather, this 3-hour epic, was shot in 62 days.
Oh my God.
That's fast.
Wow.
And the entire time, Coppola lived in fear that he was about to be fired.
Yeah.
He was under constant studio pressure.
It's one of those movies where if you're a studio exec and you see dailies, you might go, what the hell is going on? I can't understand what that guy's saying the whole time.
They were furious at Brando because he was doing that voice.
Yeah.
They hated Al Pacino because he was so...
He
was boring.
Yeah, he underplayed everything.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn with him in this movie.
Right. What saved everybody was the Louis' restaurant scene. that we'll talk about later.
Oh, yeah.
When the studio saw that, they said, okay, we'll give this kid director and this kid actor a chance.
And as we know, Francis Ford Coppola went on to direct the project of his life, Captain EO.
All right, shall we get into this one?
Let's do it.
The hero's journey begins with the world of common day, or the ordinary world, where we see our main character in their status quo normal life. Jeff, The Godfather has a 1 hour world of common day. When we were talking about Field of Dreams, and
we
talked about
there's
how
already
14
disagreement
minutes-
because I don't think it's an hour long. Go
Yeah?
on.
Okay.
No.
We're introduced to the Corleone family at the wedding of Connie, played by Talia Shire, who is Francis Ford Coppola's sister. I think I knew she was part of the Coppola family, but I didn't know that she was Frank's little sister.
Didn't she also play Adrian in Rocky?
Yes?
I think she did, yeah.
Wow, I'm drawing a blank.
I think it was.
Okay.
Totally busting out my phone right now to check.
So we're
Right now.
we're introduced to the whole family of characters. Sonny, we learn that he is the hothead. Fredo,
Right.
we see him briefly, and he's drunk. We meet Tom Hagen, who was a street rat. I think he was maybe homeless. I don't know. Did you read the book
I did, yeah.
for this, or you've read it in the past?
I've read it in the past. Actually, I listened to the audiobook narrated by Joe Mantegna, and it's great.
Oh, wow. Great. So we learn that he's part of the family. The other guys call him a brother, but he's not actually of the family. He was just taken in by Vito when Sonny, as a child, found Tom on the street. And he is the family's consigliere, the counselor. And then we meet Michael, who I think is the hero of the story, but based on the fact that you disagree that the world of common day is an hour long, I think maybe you disagree.
I agree that Michael Corleone is the protagonist of this story.
Michael
for sure.
has just returned home from World War II, and during this wedding, we see the machinations of the Corleone family. Vito he's visited by various people asking him for favors, doing business deals, etc.
There's a Sicilian tradition that the bride's father can refuse no request on the day of his daughter's wedding. And so these associates of Don Corleone have come to ask him favors.
Right. During this wedding scene, Michael explains to Kay who Luca Brasi is. He's the big muscle man that
Some great comic acting by that actor. He's rehearsing his lines to request to show his respect to Don Corleone, and he just can't get it right.
But the actor was so nervous at being in that scene with Marlon Brando that he just couldn't get his lines right. If you notice that scene, he flubs it.
Yeah.
And Francis Ford Coppola decided, okay, we've got to move on. I'm going to create a scene where he is outside before his meeting with Don Corleone practicing what he's going to say.
Oh, that's
so that it
interesting.
makes it even more kind of heartbreaking that when he finally gets to talk to him, he screws up what he meant to say. And we learn during this wedding also the lengths that the Godfather will go to achieve his goals.
Right.
And we learn about how his godson, the singer Johnny Fontaine, who's kind of a Frank Sinatra-esque performer, how he got his start and how the Godfather rescued him from this studio contract that he was bound to.
Right.
And that is that he had made the band leader an offer that he couldn't refuse, which is it's the tagline essentially of the whole series.
Right.
Basically threatening to murder him if he doesn't release Johnny Fontaine from the contract.
Right.
Now, I could go on because there's still half an hour of World of Common Day from my perspective, but you disagree already. So
To me, the world of common day is everything you just talked about. Michael Corleone is the son of the Don, and he doesn't want to have anything to do with the family business.
Right.
And, we're given,
he's the Boy Scout.
Yeah, he's a war hero. He's put some distance. He's sitting in the corner of the garden. He's the one who's out. He's gotten out. To me, that is the world of common day.
Right. But after the wedding, even, there's another 30 minutes of film before Michael even really gets involved.
Yeah.
And the wedding itself is half an hour. So that's why I'm saying the World of Common Day is an hour long of this 3-hour film.
So what are the other events that you consider part of World of Common Day?
The other activities of the family business, the meeting with Virgil the Turk Sollozzo,
right,
who is trying to get the Corleone family involved in his drug trade.
So I think I get where you're going. There's a couple ways you could do this hero's journey. You could make the hero's journey about the Corleone family, or you could make it about Michael. And if we're doing the Corleone family, I think that the meeting you just described is a call to adventure, because the Turk invites the Corleone family to become part of the drug trade, and Don Corleone refuses. That becomes the setup for the whole trilogy. So I wouldn't say that's World of Common Day, because that's what sets off the conflict. That's what sets off the conflict that becomes the war. If he says yes to Sollozzo, there's no assassination attempt, there's no retaliation, Michael doesn't shoot McCluskey and Sollozzo.
Sure.
So to me, that's a clear call to adventure if you're looking at Corleone family.
Okay, so the Corleone family is the hero in this film to you, not just Michael.
No.
So why are we having this discussion?
Well, you kind of have to choose one protagonist or the other, but that's
I did.
not that's
I've
not
chosen
part of
Michael, and so have you.
So that's not the part of the World of Common Day at all.
Yeah, it is.
That's part of the ongoing conflict of the movie.
It's the world that Michael's family is living. He's not a part of any of this. There's no call to adventure yet for Michael.
Interesting.
Because he's not part of... He is the youngest son of Don Vito, but he's not a part of the crime family.
Okay. That's an interesting look, that this is part of the World of Common Day. I don't know that I buy that. But what else fits into your World of Common Day?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, let's move on to Call to Adventure. In the Call to Adventure, the hero is presented with a challenge which renders him unable to continue living in the comfort of his ordinary world. Outside his office, Don Corleone is gunned down. Cut to New York City, Michael is walking with Kay, and he passes a newsstand, and he sees the headline, Vito Corleone, feared murdered. And he runs to a phone booth, and he calls his brother, and he finds out his dad isn't dead, but Sonny tells him to come home. That's Michael's Call to Adventure.
Agreed.
Yay!
And I just want to say how different this scene would be if this took place in the 21st century. Because all Sonny would have to do is pick up his cell phone and call Michael's cell phone.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like a day later when Michael sees a newspaper, he would know immediately that his father's just
Cell phones have ruined so much for writers because communication is instant. I mean,
it can be, yeah.
If you look at horror films post 1990, every horror film has to have some scene where they explain why cell phones don't work.
Right,
there's no reception up here.
Doesn't work out here in
my
the
battery
woods.
died. Oh, I dropped it in the toilet. Whatever it is, like you have to get cell phones out of the way. It's such a problem.
Exactly. Refusal of the call. Confronted with the fear of the unknown, our hero refuses the call to adventure. Sometimes this energy is expressed from within the hero and sometimes from without. And I think this film, there's expressions of both. The first is at the wedding scene when Michael is explaining what the family does. And Kay has got this little horrified, confused look on her face. And Michael says, "That's my family, Kay. It's not me." That's the refusal from within.
That's a good one.
Refusal from without. Sonny and Tom are keeping Michael at arm's length.
Yeah.
They don't want Michael to get involved with the family business. He's the good kid, and they want to keep him that way.
Right.
So even when Michael starts asking questions at this family meeting after Vito has been shot, Sonny tells him, stay out of it.
Yeah, I mean, he straight up volunteers to be the one who goes after Sollozzo and McCluskey, and
Right.
and Sonny laughs and says, "No, you're the college boy.
Yeah.
We'll handle this."
Right.
He's making sense.
But that's a different segment that we'll get to shortly.
Oh, that's interesting. That's what I had for refusal, is that specific scene where Sonny and Tom Hagen don't take him seriously. That's not your refusal?
There's two scenes where Sonny... I'm talking about the one immediately following the shooting.
Are you talking about the scene where Michael says he wants to go visit him in the hospital, and Sonny's like, no, send some guys with him, and Michael's, no, you don't need to send guys to me.
That could be part of it as well, yeah. But this is...
So which
this
scene are you
precedes
talking
that.
about?
We're belaboring this. We're
No.
going to cut all this anyway.
No, be specific. Which scene do you mean for the refusal? Lay it out for me so that I understand. Because I think it's just my take is the scene I just described.
After Michael returns home, he and Clemenza and Sonny and Tom, they're all in like this living room, or maybe it's Vito's office. I don't know what room it is, but they're talking about what will happen if Vito dies.
Okay.
And they're talking about all the other the heads of the other families. And Sonny, I think, says, we got to strike back. And Michael says, well, you're going to you're gonna what? You're just gonna kill all of them? And Sonny says, hey, Michael, do me a favor and butt out.
Okay.
At that point, I feel like Michael's like, he's on the fringes now, and he's trying to poke his toes in the water, and Sonny's holding him back.
Interesting. Okay. So with some hesitation, we'll move on to meeting with the mentor. The hero receives counsel on how to operate in the special world. Campbell called this supernatural aid, which is the unexpected assistance that comes to one who has undertaken his proper adventure. I think there are mentor moments throughout.
Agreed.
Just after the shooting, everyone's gathered in the kitchen, and Michael's...
The family has gone to the mattresses, as it were.
Right, and Michael's sort of hanging out between the kitchen and the table, and Clemenza's like, hey, come over here, let me teach you how to make pasta. You never know when you're going to have to cook for a bunch of guys. And he's kind of teaching Michael how to make pasta, which is kind of like a Sicilian initiation. It's kind of like, hey, let me come show you how to do this. And up until this point, Michael's been very like, I'm an American. I look at my uniform. I'm different from the family.
Yeah.
And then when Michael says, I want to go visit Dad in the hospital, Sonny says, send some guys with him. And it's Clemenza, again, who says, no, Sollozzo knows he's a civilian. So again, there's this mentor energy, like it's fine. And I think that's a little bit of that refusal from without too. Clemenza pushing back on Michael being even part of the family. But the key here, the key mentor scene that ties into supernatural aid is when Clemenza shows Michael how to use the gun, how to fire it and drop it.
Exactly.
And that gun, I think, is the closest thing we have to a wand or a ring. It's sure. That's the supernatural aid.
Exactly. That is his tool.
So we kind of agree on the mentor moment.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There's some later
Yeah.
where Vito counsels Michael.
It's a great scene.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
So, crossing the first threshold. The hero must pass a barrier to enter the special world. This crossing represents the hero's commitment to taking on the adventure. After the shooting of Vito Corleone, Michael grows very cold to his girlfriend, Kay Adams, played by Diane Keaton. He is having dinner with her one night before he goes to visit his father in the hospital, and he gets up and leaves in the middle of dinner, and he says, I have to go. And she says, when will I see you again? And he says, I don't know. That is part of an emotional, I think, crossing of the threshold, because he is trying to now distance himself from Kay, and he is stepping into a world that he knows is very dangerous, and he's trying to keep her out of it. At the hospital scene, it is Michael's quick thinking and his display of leadership that saves Vito's life, because men are coming to kill his father. Michael gets to the hospital and he finds that all of the guards that are supposed to be protecting Vito are gone. The hospital is deserted. And so Michael has to hide his father, who's bedridden because he's been shot 5 times. Mm-hmm. And as he's standing over his father, he says,
I'm with you now.
Which taken literally could just mean I'm here with you physically in this moment.
Right.
But that was Michael telling his father, I'm in the business now.
Yeah.
That is what I see as the crossing of the threshold.
That was my initial take. That
okay.
moment in the hospital.
What do you see?
Well, I see it, the crossing of the threshold, the moment where Michael Corleone enters the special world of being part of the mafia when he goes to Louis' Italian restaurant and guns down Sollozzo,
brother,
and McCluskey. That is the moment where he is officially part of the mafia, no questions asked.
Okay.
Boom! End of Act 1. I can tell by the silence that is not a curveball you expected.
Should we take a break?
Sure. Let's take a break and we'll come back and discuss how wrong you are. So on that note of total dissent, we will take a break and come back with Act 2. Dan, I can tell by that look on your face that you are very unhappy.
Oh, I am super stressed out now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard from our listeners that they love it when we have different analyses and we butt heads. Like, that's their
Really?
favorite thing.
I hope so.
Our friend and listener, Scott, who has told us we talk too slow and plays this in all podcasts at like 2.5 times, He's the first one to say, "I love it when you guys disagree." Like it was at the beginning of
that
episode
right?
1 when you took Andy Dufresne and I took Red. That was like, yeah, he loved it. So I see this as
knowing that's why in episode 4 I selected Sidney Ellen Wade as the hero. So
I see that.
that's not true.
Okay. But we're not talking about the movie now. We're going to talk about Dan. What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you playing?
Before I mention that, I don't know if you noticed, but our director of craft services, my wife, wanted us to know that in honor of Kate Spade, our snacks are on a Kate Spade platter today.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Michelle, Dan's wife, every time I come here, has put out this amazing platter of vegetables and hummus. She knows I'm a vegetarian, so she puts out this amazing snack. And today she has made an avocado hummus with cannellini beans. Is that a nod to the Italian, The Godfather?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's a Giada De Laurentiis recipe.
So it's all Italian
she's
today.
She's super Italian.
Like a themed snack
right?
tray. Amazing.
It's going to be disappointing when you pull out that Coors Light in our drinking segment.
Oh, so yeah, Kate
All right.
Spade's gone, and 2 days ago, Anthony Bourdain was found dead. That's been a tough thing for the last couple of years. Suicide is an epidemic. Even the CDC has come out and said it's not just a mental health issue. This is a public health issue that
Right.
we need to address.
Right.
So we need to address it.
Yeah.
Dan, what have you been watching? What have you been reading? What have you been playing?
I recently finished book 2 of Michael Connelly's Harry Bosch series, The Black Ice. I've been listening to those on Audible. And I just started a book by Mark Lawrence called Red Sister. That is a fantasy trilogy, I think it's planned to be. There's a young girl who has been taken to a convent of basically battle nuns. They're taught, it's kind of like in a Harry Potter way, they're taught poisons and how to fight. It's kind of a training school for, I don't know if they're going to be assassins or what, but...
May I just suggest that Battle Nuns would have been a much better title for the novel than Red Sister? I would read Battle Nuns.
What about you?
Well, May is a terrible, hard month in the Garvin family because it's the last month of school for my wife, who's a teacher, and it's the last month of school for the kids. So I'm just tearing my hair out, going 90 miles an hour. But I did manage to read 2 books and listen to one. I re-listened to Aurora after our conversation on the last podcast, the Kim Stanley Robinson novel. Yeah. And I really enjoyed Aurora again. My favorite part about reading novels is the narrative voice. I love novels that play with narrative voice. That's why Catcher in the Rye is in my top 5. That's why The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon is in my top 5. I love when the narrator's fresh and unique. And the onboard AI narrates most of Aurora. So
you see it learn how to tell a story.
Yeah.
As you're reading the book.
You can hear the computer struggle with algorithms that properly assess the right parts of the story to tell.
Right.
And so it's almost a story about writing as well, as what parts of the story do you tell.
Yeah.
I also read Michael Connelly, I Am Addicted to Bosch. I read The Burning Room, which was, I think, 2014. So that one is about an old fire that burned down an apartment building and killed a bunch of children. And Bosch's new partner was there. She was one of the kids that survived. And so they kind of go back into the cold case and try to solve that crime. And it's fascinating and high tension, and you're never sure who you can trust and who you can't. It was one of the Bosch ones that wasn't just a great mystery detective story, it was a great thriller too. And then mental health's been on my mind. I read a memoir called The Center Cannot Hold. It's a memoir about schizophrenia by a psychotherapist. And she talks about from her childhood all the way to adulthood how she struggled to deal with, the madness of schizophrenia and the paranoia and hearing voices and going on and off meds. It was really a fascinating illustration, not just of schizophrenia, but of mental illness in general and how isolating it is and how it makes you wonder, do other people behave this way? Do other people think this way? Or is it just me? And one of the things that really struck me was it wasn't until she graduated from college and was in psychotherapy that she admitted to her psychotherapist that she heard voices that she thought were devils whispering to her. And she believed everyone else heard these voices too and was just better at managing it and dealing with it. And that was the first time a therapist told her, no, that's not normal. That's psychosis, and most people don't feel that way.
So we started with mental health and we ended with mental health. Let's get into Act 2 of The Godfather.
All right. Act 2, Road of Trials, also known as Tests, Allies, and Enemies. Now in the special world, our hero makes allies, meets enemies, and must pass a series of tests to prove his worthiness. You and I have already split off from one another because I can tell that Michael popping Sollozzo and McCluskey is not your crossing of the threshold. I'm going to go so far as to guess that that's your ordeal.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That is the tent pole of this movie.
Okay. I understand why you chose that, and until about 6:30 a.m. this morning, I had the same thing written down. So,
okay, well,
I think we both agree who the enemies and the allies are. We meet them all in the first act. The only new ally we meet here is Don Tomasino, who watches over Michael while he's hiding in Sicily. So the allies are Tom Hagen, Sonny, Luca Brasi, Tessio, Clemenza, and then the enemies are Sollozzo, a.k.a. the Turk. He's the guy who's bringing drugs into the mafia world. And then the other family heads, Barzini and Tatalia, and all their minions.
Yeah.
We're not. So if we skipped tests, what are the tests in your world?
Well, for me, I feel like Michael goes directly from crossing the threshold into the ordeal. Maybe the tests and whatnot, those are all... He's not a part of any of that. That's all the business of the family before Michael gets involved, really.
Gotcha. Well, I'll throw out my tests. Since your ordeal is my crossing of the threshold, I'll try to fill in some of the blanks. So when we last left our hero, he had shot Sollozzo and he had shot McCluskey, who was the police captain who's on Sollozzo's payroll and was the one who beat Michael's face. A mafia gang war ensues back home. I had written down there, vengeful forces, ? Which kind of plays into your pitch.
Yes.
That it's the, but bear with me here.
I feel like I want to skip straight to the ordeal and hear what you have to say, because
let me just go on.
All these tests that you're about to talk about, and I can kind of foresee where you're headed. That is all road back for me.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can contextualize it as tests.
Yeah.
For you. So Michael's sent into hiding in Sicily. He's tested. Can he put the family above his personal affairs? He does. He abandons his girlfriend, Kay, disconnecting from her completely. This was his connection to American life, to a future of not being part of the mafia.
Right.
And he disconnects from her. I think that's a test he passes. Again, this is this anti-hero story.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, he's failing because he's getting sucked into the mafia. But on the other hand, he passes because it's a family loyalty test.
Yeah.
In Sicily, he meets Apollonia, the beautiful daughter of a local restaurant owner, and he wins her father's approval by formally asking his permission to court her. This is another test. Can he conform to old Sicilian ways of life? Can he abandon his American way of life, which is, we never meet Kay's father. We don't know if he had any formal dealings with her. He just brought her to the wedding like you would your American girlfriend.
Yep.
So this is his departure. Again, another test. Can you be a true Sicilian? Yes, he can. And in that scene outside the restaurant, he sends one of his bodyguards in to go get the father, and he's sitting there wiping his face with a napkin. He's holding court. His arms are back on the chair, his legs are crossed, and he stays seated while he talks to the restaurant owner.
Yeah,
this is our first peek of him as the Don, right?
Yeah.
So,
and in that scene, I just want to add, Al Pacino was supposed to speak Italian, but Al Pacino does not speak Italian.
Yeah.
He had a hard time, and so they decided, speak English, have one of your bodyguards translate for you, because that will also establish...
I'm controlling the negotiations here. I'm in charge.
Well, but also the fact that he unintentionally insulted the restaurant owner when they first meet. Mm-hmm. And then he can say, I'm American, I don't know the culture, I apologize.
Okay.
Now I would like to court your daughter with your permission.
Okay.
And in your supervision, I'd like to come to your house.
That's cool.
I think they made that work.
Yeah.
The fact that Al Pacino couldn't really speak Italian well enough to...
That's so funny. Yeah, because there's another scene, in the shooting scene that we've gotten to but not gotten to yet. He does a lot of speaking Italian, and then you see him frustrated, and he switches to English. And it's interesting that they didn't do the thing where in a lot of movies they start speaking the language, and then a cut happens and they're speaking English, but we're to understand that they're still speaking whatever language they were speaking. I've seen that happen in a couple movies.
The Hunt for Red October does that
Yes.
really well.
Yes, thank you. That was a great one.
Join us next time when we talk about...
So he marries Apollonia, and he wants to return, but Don Tomasino tells him it's not safe. The rest of the tests address what you were just saying, which it all happens back in New York. These tests all happen back in New York, not to Michael. But here's where I would put them. Don Corleone is effectively retired now, and Sonny takes over the family. Sonny gets tested when his sister's husband, Carlo, beats the crap out of her.
Right.
The test here is, can he keep his cool and handle the situation like a Don would? And he fails.
Oh, yeah.
He loses his cool, he attacks Carlo on the street and beats him and publicly humiliates him, which has repercussions later. And Fredo gets tested. He gets a new assignment, go be the new guy in Vegas. And he fails because he just ends up being Mo Green's lapdog.
Exactly.
In Vegas.
Yes.
So these aren't tests for Michael, but they affect Michael because they're setups for him being the new Don. Because we're seeing the other brothers fail these tests.
Yeah, he's the youngest son and not the one tapped really to be the next Don. But his older brothers are not up to the task, so it's up to Michael.
So I'm guessing that for you, starting with the gang war, that's all vengeful forces retaliating for Michael having shot Sollozzo.
It absolutely is.
Okay, interesting.
And I'm still, I don't know what your ordeal is.
I'm coming to it.
And of course, we forgot to do deal or ordeal.
Right.
Darn it. And this would have been a good one to do because obviously we both disagree terribly.
Yeah, you kind of spilled it when I told you what my crossing of the threshold was, because I could see in your eyes that was your ordeal. I'd already given...
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to play it now and you can tell me what you think the ordeal is? You just said you don't know, so you got no guess?
Yeah, no, I have no idea where you're going with this.
So why don't we take approach and you tell me what your approach is?
Approach to the inmost cave. This is where the hero makes final preparations for the central ordeal of the adventure. And I think that text is what drove me to the McCluskey and Sollozzo assassination as being the ordeal.
Yeah.
The central ordeal of the adventure.
Yeah.
So the preparations being Michael and his brothers planning the assassination. That whole scene is the approach.
Gotcha.
That's approach.
If the shooting's the ordeal, I agree. That's the approach. My approach is different, and it was tough. Where we just left off here was Michael had married Apollonia, Sonny and Fredo had failed their tests. We're already seeing that they're not Don material. Back in New York, the gang war's escalating, but Michael isn't aware of this. He's still stuck in semi-rural Sicily, and there's literally no internet access. Like, he can't even get a bar on his phone. To me, the closest thing to an approach here, because I think we have this unique situation where the hero is removed from the fray. The closest thing to the approach here is when Sonny is assassinated on the causeway. We find out later it's Barsini's men. And Don Tomasino gives him the news. That is the call back to the special world. That is Michael's invitation to approach the cave, which leaves us with...
Wow. That's not... Barzini's men assassinating Sonny isn't all part of the road back, the vengeful forces retaliating against the hero or the hero's allies for the hero's actions in the ordeal? All of that is.
I certainly recognize them as vengeful forces. But I mean, if you're going to go with vengeful forces, the shooting of Vito Corleone is a vengeful force for him saying no to Sollozzo. So in a movie about a mafia war, there's a lot of things you could point to as vengeful forces. So I totally get that those are vengeful forces. I even think that you've got a legitimate... I think you've got a legitimate claim. I appreciate your look at what the ordeal is, and I can see that path. That's where I was going. But I chose different moments because I think the shooting of those two guys happens way too early in the movie for it to be the central ordeal.
No. You talk a lot about the structure of a story, and particularly when we've done films, you talk a lot about the timing of events. This is a 3-hour film. The assassination of Sollozzo and McCluskey is at 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Literally the center of the film.
Yeah.
And if you look at that, and I feel like I'm being like too textbook right now, but if you look at that graph that Christopher Vogler added to his chapter about the ordeal, that's right where that is the tent pole of the film.
I hear you. I disagree, but I hear you.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing your argument against it because I feel like you're going against everything that you've said before in previous episodes about the structure of a story and the placement of these certain elements.
So moving on to ordeal. The hero faces his worst fear, risks death, sometimes appears actually to die. I see this as Michael Corleone's story of becoming the Don. He becomes the Godfather. That's this story. His slowly being ripped away from all the things he plans to be. His escape hatch closes and he is forced into the life he never wanted to have. That's that anti-hero story, right? Mm-hmm. We've just covered Sonny's assassination, which isn't something that happens to Michael, but what does happen to Michael is he gets told about it. So he's just learned that his brother has been assassinated, and one of Michael's bodyguards turned traitor and plants a car bomb in his car. It's intended for him.
Oh, Fabrizio. Why? Why Fabrizio?
But it kills Apollonia, his new bride, instead.
Which, again, that's a retaliation. That's all part of, for me, that's all part of the retaliation for Michael assassinating Sollozzo and McCluskey.
I get that. But it's also woman is temptress, which is the hero losing his innocence. I'm going to quote Campbell here because it's poignant.
Yeah.
Or it's germane, I guess. When it dawns on us or is forced to our attention that everything we think or do is necessarily gained with the odor of the flesh, not just sexual desire, but violence in this case. There's experienced a moment of revulsion. Life, the acts of life, and woman in particular, is the great symbol of life become intolerable. This is the moment where everyone he cares about has been murdered or attempted to be murdered. This is the worst point in his life. This is the point where there is no comfort to be had. All the things that he had wanted to become, all the hopes he had for any other life have been extinguished. This is the dark moment of the soul for Michael Corleone. He has no other option but to go back and do what he does. So while I agree that he's risking life and facing the fear when he shoots Sollozzo and when he shoots McCluskey, Michael Corleone is doing that to avenge his father, and he knows he's going to go away for a while. But I still think he harbors the hope that when things die down, he can have a normal life again. He can come back into the country.
A normal life again?
Well, an American life. This is the moment. This is the moment.
I disagree with that. I think he knows this is the end of that life for him.
This is the moment where any hope of another life is erased.
Yeah, I just don't see that how this is the moment where he realizes his life is going to be completely different now for the rest of his days.
Because he knows Sonny was the only other person who could be the Don. Fredo, it's established early on that Fredo is not the guy, that he's a joke. He even kind of hints to Kay in that first scene that Fredo's kind of the goofy brother, and she senses it. So Fredo, we know from the beginning, is not the guy. So when Sonny's dead, there's nobody else. He's locked in. And we've already seen he has loyalty. And we know when he sees Apollonia die, you see that fire in his eye. There's no turning back. So to me, that is the linchpin moment. That's the dark night of the soul. That is the point of no return. That's the ordeal.
We're moving now into the ultimate boon, or reward, seizing the sword. Having faced his worst fear, the hero seizes the object of his quest. I was about to ask you, what is the reward then for this ordeal that you just described? But I think I know where you're going now.
Okay.
I think I got it.
You're starting to see the daylight in there?
So for me, the reward is, one, given my ordeal being the assassination of Sollozzo and the corrupt police captain McCluskey,
right,
is vengeance for the attempted assassination of his father.
Right.
The family uses their connections in the journalism industry to expose Captain McCluskey's corruption, which discredits him.
Yeah.
And it is a statement of intent by Michael, a notification to the other families that he is not to be underestimated, that he has joined the fray.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Which then sets up what I think you're about to say is your ultimate boon, your seizure of the sword, which is...
Michael returns to New York, and he claims Kay Adams as his bride.
Wow. claims.
Yeah. Oh, he does. I mean, he in that scene, he gets out of the car and she is just bereft. You can see that she's been clinging to being a teacher and trying to have a life. And when he comes back, it wrecks her.
Michael, why did you come here? Why? What do you want of me after all this time without even calling or writing?
He has not contacted her.
Yeah.
She has tried to contact Michael through the family, and they have said, nobody knows where he is. We can't tell you anything. And he's gone for at least a year.
Yeah. So he returns, he opens the car door, he gets out of the car, and he, says very calmly and very coldly,
I came here because I need you, because I care for you,
Please stop it, Michael.
because I want you to marry me.
we have echoes of, in Act 1, the Godfather tells Sonny, do you spend time with your family? No, he says to Johnny Fontaine, do you spend time with your family? Because if you don't spend time with your family, you're nothing. Family's everything. Yeah. And we can tell that Michael Corleone is even colder than Vito because he's like, oh, I need a family. I should acquire Kate.
Right.
And we will have children, and then I will have a family. It's all business.
Yeah.
So he returns.
Yeah, that is such a gross business transaction scene.
Yeah.
Where Michael comes. Oh, God. Ugh.
He takes Kay Adams as his bride, and with the guidance and the mentorship, the mentor moment of Don Corleone, he begins to take charge of the family business. So the reward here is a reunion with his girlfriend and his family, and the sword is the new power he wields as the acting Don. Well, that brings us to the end of Act 2. We're going to take a well-deserved break.
Tough. Are we still friends?
Totally. And when we come back, we'll have Act 3.
All right, Jeff.
All right, Dan.
Hopefully we can agree on this. It's time for a drink.
Yeah!
As with every episode, I have what I hope is a pleasant surprise in a bag, and I'm going to hand it to you now. Oh my God, it's a horse head!
No, it is not a horse head. It is, I'm pulling out the thing. It's a bottle of wine called Edizione Pennino, 2015 Inglenook Rutherford Napa Valley Zinfandel.
Now let me tell you about this. Actually, no. You want to read the back of the bottle?
This Zinfandel was created as an homage to Francisco Benigni, maternal grandfather of Francis Ford Coppola. Boom!
That's the connection!
Who left Naples in 1905 to seek his fortune in America. Another connection.
Yes.
Upon arriving in New York, he wrote to his wife, Dear Nina.
Okay, let's not.
Awesome. Okay, so this was made for the maternal grandfather of Francis Ford Coppola.
Within those diamonds, there's two images there. One is the Bay of Naples, which is the last image Signore Pennino saw as he left Italy. And then on the other diamond is the Statue of Liberty, which is the first element of America that he saw when he arrived.
That's beautiful.
Do you know the history of Inglenook as a winery? Do you remember the name?
No.
Does it have any meaning for you?
No. That name no longer has any meaning for me.
In the 70s, when we were in diapers, Inglenook had fallen from premier wine producer to jug wine. It had fallen on hard times, and that was their solution. Just make wine as cheaply as you could to survive. Following the success of The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola used his proceeds to purchase the winery and then set about rebuilding it. In 1985, they debuted Rubicon, which was a Bordeaux-style red blend named after, of course, Caesar's famous crossing of the Rubicon River in northern Italy, which denoted the point of no return for him and his army. The winery was named Rubicon at the time, which was a metaphor for Coppola's own quest to create world-class wine. Damn. So for decades, they'd been producing wine under this Rubicon name, built that name to the point where it was considered a reputable producer. And then in 2011, Coppola restored the Inglenook trademark, honoring the estate's original heritage and returning the Inglenook name to prominence.
Wow.
Honoring the family that originally started that winery back in the late 1800s.
You win this episode just for the hero's journey of this wine. That is awesome, Dan. I'm impressed.
This particular brand, Edizione Pennino Zinfandel, debuted in 1988. Now, this is not a 1988 bottle.
You
I don't think I could have afforded that.
didn't manufacture it under false pretenses like that dude from that book you were talking about a couple episodes ago?
No. So shall we pop the cork on this?
I will say this. Never before has my mouth watered at the thought of drinking a wine. And your description of this wine, I am literally salivating. I cannot wait to pop this open and drink it.
Wow. Okay.
Will you do the honors?
All right, here comes the cork. And you're not supposed to pop it.
I know, but
Like in the movie?
that's better for
at the
radio.
At the Salazzo scene?
Yeah.
When the waiter goes, boop, when he pops that cork?
Yeah.
Bad.
It's more cinematic, though.
So should I do it?
Well, it's like the...
Let's see if I can mimic the waiter at Louis'.
Do it.
Oh! That actually sounded pretty good.
So I love it that you're the policeman of wine etiquette in films. My wife is the policeman of bad musical visuals when someone's not really a musician and they're faking it.
Yes.
Or like her pet peeve is when conductors tap their baton on the music stand.
Right.
Like that's akin to like taking a poop in the theater to get some, like no one would do that unless, someone was doing something horrible.
They don't do that to get the
No.
musician's attention? Like, okay, everybody get ready.
No, you raise your hands and they're already
They're
looking
all
at you.
supposed to be paying attention
But
to you.
some conductors do that eyebrow thing like in the cartoons. That's real.
So did something happen in this film that upset Ami?
No.
There's two scenes where live music is being played. One is at
Yeah.
the wedding.
Yeah.
And they hired actual musicians
Yeah. Oh, it's
to do
legit.
that.
It's legit.
The other one is during the montage of newspaper headlines
Right.
on screen as Michael is in Sicily.
Yeah.
You see a man playing a piano, and that is Carmine Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola's
really?
father, and that is a piano piece that he wrote
Wow.
called This Loneliness.
Yeah, Coppola is one of those directors who is obsessive about authenticity. So I'm not surprised at all that he did the right thing there.
I should also add that I am a member of the Inglenook Wine Club, which is why I have this bottle. A few years ago, my wife and I went up to Napa for a vacation, and we stopped at the Inglenook Estate and fell in love with their wines. They were so delicious that we joined their wine club immediately. So I hope you like this.
Ooh. Now that is a beautiful dark purple wine. It's almost black. This is what they must have used on set for Interview with the Vampire. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's not like, I remember that Cabernet Franc we had and you could see through it. This is utterly opaque. I'm smelling it now for those of you at home. I have such an undeveloped nose for wine. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the bouquet?
Well, to be quite honest, I don't have a very good nose for wine either. I don't know if you've seen Sideways.
What the hell are we doing then?
Have you seen Sideways?
Yes, I have.
Like, I don't want to be like the Paul Giamatti character, but I wish I had his nose. I feel like anytime I go wine tasting, I'm more like the Thomas Hayden Church character, where he's just like, it tastes pretty good to me.
Whenever I think about wine, I think about Kevin Kline and French Kiss. Have you seen that film?
No.
Oh, he's a winemaker, and he brings Meg Ryan back to France. And there's a scene where he has a little, like a jewelry box with little sections, and they all have different dried herbs and flowers and berries.
Yeah.
And he says, take a sip of wine. And she takes a sip and she says, I don't know, it tastes like wine. And then he, crushes a dried cherry under her nose and says, drink it again. And she's, cherry. And then, there's lavender. Like he does this taste experience. And I remember thinking, I want to drink wine. But I was like, 19 and I was like, Boone's Farm.
They, I don't know who they is. Somebody makes smell kits that are like that are little vials of different scents, and that's how a lot of sommeliers learn how to associate those scents with wine.
We should do this. All right, I'm going to take a sip.
Yeah.
Oh, that's delicious. It's sweet. What's it called when it bites the side of your tongue? That's tannins.
If it makes your mouth feel dry, your tongue feel dry, if it sucks all the moisture out of it, then that's tannins.
Okay, there's some of those in there.
Really? I'm not getting that.
Yeah.
It's not very tannic to me at all.
What should I be tasting?
Whatever you want.
Hey, what's the thing you're doing where you're puffing your cheeks out? I don't know how to do that. Is that like just like garden swishing it around?
I'm just filling my mouth with it, trying to swish it all over the parts of my mouth so I can taste it everywhere. This is really velvety to me. Real smooth. You're getting a dryness.
Look, I'm the Thomas Hayden Church character here. It tastes pretty good to me.
All right, as Jeff gargles his Zinfandel,
Delicious.
we'll be right back with Act 3.
Act 3 begins with the road back. The hero is pursued by the vengeful forces he disturbed when he seized the sword. Now, Dan's road back began on page 15 of the screenplay. No. So, for you, the road back
My
is...
road back already happened. Yeah, it was
Right, all the stuff that happens...
Michael hiding in Sicily, the assassination of Sonny, and
The gang war.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the murder of Apollonia. It was an attempted assassination of Michael. All of that was road back.
I hear you.
And it brings Michael back to America.
From my perspective, this is an anti-hero story. And so, playing on a twist on those vengeful forces, Michael becomes the vengeful force. He begins preparations for the Corleone family to move to Las Vegas. He demotes Tom Hagen from consigliere to just family attorney in Vegas. He goes to Vegas, very calmly, in a Vito Corleone style, chastises his brother and puts Mo Green in his place, makes him an offer he can't refuse. And he gets Johnny Fontaine to agree to an exclusive performance contract at their new casino.
Right.
So we get to see him sort of setting up the dominoes. And then there's this great atonement with the father scene that we referenced earlier. Michael is sitting with his father, drinking wine.
Yeah.
And Vito warns Michael.
Barzini will move against you first. He'll set up a meeting with someone that you absolutely trust, guaranteeing your safety. And at that meeting, you'll be assassinated.
That's the road back. Michael's setting up the dominoes. Michael is becoming the vengeful force. He's taking control and he's loading the guns.
Okay.
Part of the road back is crossing of the return threshold. So the hero's crossed into the special world, accomplished some great task. He seized otherworldly knowledge, and now he has to come back into the, quote, normal world. The ordinary world is gone for Michael Corleone. Mm-hmm. There is no going back to his pre-mafia life. There is no more ordinary world. It's been obliterated by this gang war and by the actions Michael's taken. So what I see is the crossing of the return thresholds, Michael crossing back into the world, is that scene in the tomato garden, this beautiful scene in the tomato garden where Don Corleone is playing with his grandson, and it's so well shot. It's Marlon Brando does this thing where he bites an orange and he puts the orange in his mouth and makes a funny face, and then the kid is scared. Instead of laughing, he's scared, and then so he's trying to tease him, and then Don Corleone falls. He passes out, and you can hear the tomato plants crackle as he falls to the ground dead. This is Michael becoming Don Corleone. And then at the funeral, Tessio now recognizes, the other families are recognizing Michael as the new Don, and he approaches Michael to arrange a meeting with Barzini so they can have a, quote, truce. And of course, just as Vito warned Michael, that means Tessio's the traitor. He's the one who's breaking the agreement, and he's going to set Michael up to be assassinated. So to me, that's the road back.
Resurrection, or the Master of Two Worlds. I think there is such a beautiful expression of Master of Two Worlds, and so clear in this film. The hero undergoes a final purging and purification before re-entering the ordinary world. Now, as we've already decided, the ordinary world is gone.
Right.
It's a new ordinary world for Michael. After the funeral of Don Vito, Michael attends the baptism of his nephew, Michael. He is agreeing to become the Godfather to Connie's son. So this is, again, another expression of him taking the mantle of the title, literally, of Godfather.
Yeah, he becomes a literal Godfather and the capital G Godfather in
Right.
this scene, for sure.
Exactly. And it's this classic religious ceremony, this baptism of this baby, who is played by an infant Sofia Coppola.
No way! See, when I was watching the movie, that got lost in translation.
Oh,
Wah, wah. Ouch. I didn't know that was Sophia. Wow.
Yeah.
Probably got her SAG card, too.
So during this rather beautiful religious ceremony, simultaneously, hitmen of the Corleone family are executing the heads of the other families and Mo Green in Las Vegas,
Yes.
settling all of the family business.
Classic
This is
sequence.
literally Master of the Two Worlds. The family man and the Dawn.
Well done.
That sequence of cutting between the priest asking Michael, do you renounce Satan and all of his work?
Mm-hmm.
And Michael says, I renounce him. And then cut to a dude getting murdered.
Yeah.
And then cut back to the priest. Do you renounce blah, 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 blah? And I renounce them. And then amazing. Such a great sequence.
Yeah.
And that is the master of two worlds. The resurrection part, this is Michael definitively resurrecting the persona of the Godfather in the story.
Well done.
Do you agree with that?
I totally agree.
Sweet. Do you have anything to add?
Yes. Well, the first thing is, I can't believe you left this out. It's like I don't even know you anymore. We get a literal baptism. There is a literal baptism in this movie.
I mentioned it.
I know, but you didn't call it out as an element of the mythology, because it's Michael that's
It's
being
not
baptized
Michael
here. It's Michael's ceremony. This is all about
It's the
Michael.
baby's baptism.
Yes, but it's not about the baby. We don't care about the baby. It's Michael being inducted as the Don. This is his ceremony as he becomes the Godfather. Sorry.
Right, okay.
Okay, so we get a baptism. I hate it when we agree, but we argue anyway. And then the only other thing that I included in the assassination of the five families and Mo Green is that Michael goes to Carlo's house, his sister's husband,
Right.
looks him in the eye and says, you have to answer for Santino. Because he believes that Carlo's the one, but he wants to see Carlo admit it. And as soon as Carlo admits, he goes, here, I got a plane ticket for you. You're going to go to Vegas and be in Vegas. Of course, he doesn't go to Vegas. He gets in the car and is immediately garroted.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Carlo. So that's another thing he's sewing up. So this is a great contrast from Sonny's way of handling things, which is to beat him in the street in front of everyone.
Right.
And Michael, who's clearly more
Cold.
vicious than Vito.
Cold and calculating.
I don't think Vito would have had him murdered. I think
No,
he would have said,
because
that's family. You can't do that.
They discuss that in the novel, actually, that you don't interfere with a Sicilian marriage.
Yeah.
It's hinted at a little bit in there's a dinner scene earlier where Carlo tells Connie to shut up. And Sonny says, hey, don't you ever tell my sister to shut up. And Mom says, Sonny, don't interfere. And I think that was probably Don Vito's philosophy as well. That's a traditional Sicilian family philosophy.
And in the novel, at the very beginning, Mario Puzo, as whoever the narrator is telling us that Don Corleone does not approve of Carlo as a husband. And one of the reasons why Connie agrees to have the traditional wedding at the Don's house is because she knows he doesn't approve. And so she's making a concession. Okay, we'll do the wedding your way at your house. So it's already set up that he is going to take care of this guy because his daughter chose him, but he doesn't approve. So it's a great contrast. We're in Michael's world now, and he has taken the gloves off.
Right.
The person he loved is dead, and now he's going to not just rule New York, but he's going to move to Vegas, and he's going to rule the family in a new way. So those are the only two things I would add to Resurrection.
Okay.
Which brings us to Return with the Elixir. The hero, having won some precious treasure or reward, now returns to the ordinary world to share his spoils of battle. The ordinary world, as we discussed, is obliterated.
Yeah.
Except if you look at the ordinary world of the Godfather, he literally is returning to that office to be, paid homage to and worshipped by people, just like in the opening scene of the film, that shot that pulls back, and we see Amerigo beseeching the Godfather. Here we are in that situation again. So back at the Corleone home, Connie confronts Michael.
You lousy bastard! You killed my husband. You waited until Papa died so nobody could stop you, and then you killed him.
Great performance. Yeah. And she's hysterical, and Michael has her taken out of the room. And then Kay, in an echo of the scene at the beginning where Michael's sort of saying, this is my family, but it's not how I work. Kay asks him,
Is it true?
Don't ask me about my business.
No.
he just cuts her out. That is not your place. You are wife. You never ask me about my business. And then he relents and says, okay, I'll let you ask me this one time. And she says, is it true? And he lies straight to her face. So Kay's relieved. Oh my God, thank goodness. And she leaves to make them drinks. And some men enter the room and they kiss Michael's hand. And then we get that shot of the door, that classic shot of the door closing as Kay looks into the room and sees this happening. And this look on her face as the last shot of the movie was like, who did I marry? What happened?
Right.
And you just, on that sort of disgust and despair and fear, the door closes and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So good. Side note on that, there's a great scene in Braveheart where Robert the Bruce is confronting his father and saying, "You're a monster. I'm not going to follow your machinations anymore. I believe in William Wallace." And he closes the door on his father, and it's that same shot. And in the commentary, Mel Gibson basically says, "Yeah, we totally stole that shot from The Godfather." That's one of those iconic shots that gets echoed in later films.
Yeah, interesting. Is that it?
Well, I should mention that it's barely 11 o'clock, and I am very deep into this glass of wine.
Yeah, I'm almost done with mine already. I'm ready for another pour, but you know what? It's okay because it's wine. We're talking about an Italian film, and they drink wine for breakfast. So we are culturally
appropriate. Well, I'm Irish, but here's to the Italians and their traditions.
Salud.
Salud.
That's it for this episode. Join us next month when we will be analyzing the 1954 Alfred Hitchcock thriller Rear Window.
If you're enjoying this podcast, dear listener, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you love what you've heard, please leave us a rating and a review and tell your friends to listen.
Thanks to Taylor Jordan for our amazing Hero's Journey fanfare and bumper music. Check him out at dramatics.net. To Dean Effington of DAE Design for our logo. And thanks to Inglenook Winery for this delicious Edizione Pennino Zinfandel.
I'm loving it. It's so good. Oh, good stuff.
Take a sip right now.
The Godfather is copyright 1972, Paramount Pictures.
The Hero's Journey is proud to be a part of the 1888 Center family of podcasts. 1888 serves as a regional catalyst for the preservation, presentation, and promotion of cultural heritage and literary arts.
You can visit the Center's cafe, gallery, and bookshop physically in historic downtown Orange, California, or online at 1888.center.
Please follow us on Twitter at Heroes Podcast, like us on Facebook, and check out our show notes at heroesjourneypodcast.com.
Until next time,
journey on.
You're just another part of me.
Wow.